This happened a few years ago. I was 35, working long hours as a software developer. I felt drained, so I decided to take a weekend camping trip. Just me and nature. I thought it would be great for recharging. I still can't believe what happened that I arrived at the campsite in the afternoon. The trees were stunning, full of orange and gold leaves. The lake looked calm and peaceful. I set up my tent near the shore. It felt nice at first. As dusk rolled in, I made a fire and cooked some food. There were no other campers around, which I liked. I wanted solitude. That first night, I crawled into my sleeping bag and listened to the crackling fire. Then I heard it. Laughter. Faint and echoing through the trees. I figured it was other campers nearby, but it didn't sound right. It was strange and distant. I brushed it off and tried to sleep. The next night was worse. The laughter returned, louder and closer. It felt like it zigzagged through the woods. I pushed myself up and peered outside, but I didn't see anything. Just shadows. My heart raced. I thought maybe I was imagining things. I got back into my bag and hoped to ignore it. By the third night, something shifted. I noticed odd symbols etched into the ground right outside my tent. They looked weird, like someone was trying to say something. I wanted to think I was just tired, but my gut told me otherwise. I looked around, the echoes of that laughter still circling in my head. It made me feel uneasy. I should have left then, but I didn't. I convinced myself it was stress getting to me. Later that night, I checked my gear for snacks and what? My flashlight was gone. I was certain I had put it in my tent. Panic set in. I rummaged through my things, but nothing was where it should be. I felt cold, and my heart raced even faster. What was happening? Was I losing my mind? I tried to calm down. As I sat by the fire, my eyes kept drifting to the tree line. The laughter echoed again, louder. That's when I saw it. A figure, hiding just behind the trees, watching me. I blinked, and it vanished. Hello? I shouted. No answer. Just silence. A chill ran down my spine. I could feel I wasn't alone. I wanted to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. The shadows swirled around me. This wasn't just my imagination. What had I stumbled into? I didn't know what to do. I wanted to leave so badly. I could hear laughter again, and I knew it wasn't just in my head. It felt wrong. I gathered my things, but part of me didn't want to leave the tent. I wasn't ready to face whatever was out there. Time seemed to freeze. I could feel eyes on me. The echoes grew louder as I packed my gear. I didn't have any answers. I just knew I had to get out before things got worse. The laughter rang through the trees one last time, and I finally understood I wasn't alone at that campsite, and I'd never understand what had happened there. I stumbled through the trees, heart pounding. I needed to get to my car. I picked up speed, still feeling the weight of those eyes on me. The laughter was now a steady hum in the background, like it was mocking my urgency. I could hear the leaves crunch beneath my feet. I hoped with every step that I wouldn't hear any approaching footsteps behind me. As I broke out of the underbrush and reached the parking lot, I felt a rush of relief. The moonlight reflected off my car, and I sprinted to it, fumbling with my keys. My hands were shaking, and it took me too long to find the right one. Finally, the door clicked open, and I dove into the driver's seat. I locked the doors and took a moment to breathe. My mind raced. I tried to convince myself that I was just tired, just imagining things. But the laughter lingered in my head, taunting me. Then I noticed it. The back seat. One of my bags was missing. Panic reinvaded my thoughts, and I glanced back, but there was nothing. My flashlight, my snacks, and now my backpack. This couldn't be happening. I turned to face the front, focusing on the road in front of me. I needed to leave. Just as I put the key in the ignition, I heard it again, the laughter. This time, it was right there. It echoed not far from my car. My blood ran cold. I couldn't see anything outside, but I felt it, a presence creeping closer, circling me. Get a grip, I told myself. I turned the key, but the engine sputtered. No, I turned again, but it wouldn't fire up. The laughter turned into whispers. There was something in those sounds, a message buried beneath their playful tone. I couldn't make out the words, but they felt directed at me, inviting, coaxing, almost like a twisted game. I started to sweat. Finally, the engine roared to life, surprising me. I slammed the gear into reverse and took off out of there, tires spinning on gravel. I didn't look back, but I could feel something still watching. The woods felt alive, each tree was a spectator to my escape. As I drove down that dark, winding road, trying to regain my sanity, I remembered the symbols I'd seen outside my tent. What did they mean? Were they left by someone or something? I needed to figure it out. But that would be for another day. Right now, I just needed to get home. When I noticed it. A figure standing in the middle of the road. I slammed on the brakes. My heart raced. It was a girl, dressed in white. She was staring right at me. Help me, she mouthed, but only the laughter echoed in my mind. I couldn't stop myself. I had to know what she wanted. The woods whispered around me again, and suddenly, I was back at the campsite. The road ahead had vanished. I was trapped, and the dark figures were closing in. I blinked, trying to shake off the fog. The campsite, with all its familiar sights, now felt alien. The laughter swirled around me, clinging like mist. Fear shot through my veins again. I gripped the steering wheel hard, breath hitching in my throat. The girl in white remained still, eyes wide, her lips twitching slightly as if trying to speak again. But the laughter drowned out her words. Panic surged. I had to get out of here. I refused to let whatever this was hold me captive. I shifted into drive, eyes darting to the dark shapes lurking in the shadows of the trees. They seemed to sway, almost like they were dancing. I could see their outlines, but nothing clear. I peeled out onto the Camp South dirt road, away from the girl and the unsettling figures. The laughter echoed around me, driving deep into my mind. I focused on the path. But it twisted and turned, each bend pulling me further into the darkness. The headlights flickered, illuminating nothing more than the trunks of trees on either side, their black bodies stretching upward and vanishing into the night. No sign of a way out, and then I saw it, a signpost, half buried in leaves, barely visible. Exit, it read. I felt a pulse of hope. I turned down a narrow dirt path. The engine strained, but I kept going, adrenaline sharpening my thoughts. As I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Just past the edge of my headlights, shadows flitted silently between the trees. I drove faster, willing the car to gain speed, feeling the weight of dread clinging to my back. Suddenly, a loud thud against the side of my car jolted me. I cried out, heart racing as I spun the wheel. The laughter grew louder, now mingled with strange whimpering sounds. Get out. The voice was clearer. It sounded desperate, sad. I stole a glance to my right and froze. There was one of them, a dark figure pressed against my window. Its face was a blur, but I could feel its eyes boring into me. A sense of deep wrongness washed over me. I couldn't breathe. The road opened up a little ahead, promising escape, and I shoved my foot down on the gas. The trees blurred past. I didn't want to look at the figure, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still there, just a breath away. Then everything went dark. The headlights flickered off, the engine choked, and the world outside fell silent. I was suddenly in complete blackness. I slammed my hands against the steering wheel, forcing myself to stay calm. Just then, a tiny glint of light caught my eye in the rearview mirror. My breath caught again as I turned my head. There was a lantern glowing softly, illuminating the girl in white standing in the road behind me, her outstretched hand beckoning me to return. The whispers returned, urging me toward the girl. I couldn't tell if they were calling me back or warning me. But deep down, I sensed I had to make a choice. I clenched my fists, a chill racing through me. I was not ready to find out what lay ahead, but I had to figure this out. The woods pressed close, shadows creeping in. As I finally twisted the key again, hoping for a miracle, I realized this was only the beginning. I fought against the darkness pressing in around me. The engine sputtered and coughed, then thankfully roared back to life. Relief washed over me, but it was quickly snuffed out by the sight of the girl waving her hand. A part of me wanted to leap out, to join her, but the feeling of dread anchored me in place that I shifted into reverse, my foot trembling against the gas pedal. The moment I did, the headlights flickered on in a pulse, illuminating the girl's face. She looked the same as before, but now, I noticed the sadness in her expression deepening. "Please," she mouthed, her lips barely moving. "Please." Before I could react, another thud echoed against the car, this time on the opposite side. My heart plummeted. I turned quickly in the direction of the noise. Another figure loomed in the shadows, larger, more menacing. Its eyes glinted in the faint light, but they were not human. There was something primal about it that I slammed the car into drive and sped down the dirt road, heart pounding like a drum. The trees closed in, branches reaching out like claws. Was something chasing me? I strained to hear above the relentless laughter that twisted through the air. It felt as if the woods themselves were alive, laughing and mocking my fear that I glanced back. The girl had moved closer, her silhouette flickering like a flame caught in the wind. I felt a strange pull toward her, but the other figure was building speed, keeping pace just beyond my headlights. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. The silence was bone-chilling. That's when I glimpsed it just ahead a clearing. Relief washed over me again, but as I barreled toward it, a horrifying realization set in. The clearing wasn't empty. There were more figures, dozens of them, gathered in a circle, their faces turned toward me. The girl in white stood at the front, a look of urgency mixed with fear etched on her features. They were all looking at me, drawn to the car like moths to a flame. I slammed the brakes, skidding to a halt. My breath came fast and ragged. I was trapped, surrounded. The engine roared, muffled by the pounding in my head. I was torn between the girl's silent plea and the creeping terror that gripped me. "Get out!" The voice returned, echoing loud and clear now. Everything inside me screamed to leave, but fear kept me rooted. I scanned the figures quickly, searching for a way out, a sign, anything to help me understand. But their faces were veiled in shadows, expressions unreadable. And then I saw it, a flicker of light rising from the center of their circle, a small flame that pulsed with an unnatural glow. It danced higher, casting eerie shadows across the figures, and for a moment, I was mesmerized. "Help us," the girl mouthed again, desperation pooling in her eyes as she stepped forward into the light. I felt my heart race. There was something both terrifying and beautiful about this moment, as if it pulled me closer to a truth I'd been avoiding. The fear was still there, but now, curiosity and urgency surged alongside it. What was happening? Why were they all here? Before I could think further, the ground beneath the car rumbled. The figures started moving, their shadows undulating like waves. My gut twisted. I had to make a decision, and fast. Then the flame flickered violently, and I felt the car shake. Something was coming, something that would change everything. The world outside the car spun like a nightmare, the shuffling figures surrounding me blurring into a mass of shadowy intent. My palms gripped the steering wheel, slick with sweat. I glanced at the girl again. She was standing at the edge of the circle now, the flame illuminating her face, casting stark lines around her features. There was fear, yes, but also something resolute in her gaze. The ground shook again, and I noticed how the figures were swaying, almost in rhythm with the pulse of that strange light. Panic surged in my chest, a frantic desire to escape this gathering that felt more like a trap than a haven. I threw the car into reverse, but the engine sputtered, hesitating like it sensed my fear. "Please," the girl mouthed again, her eyes wide. I could see something flickering deep within them, a mixture of hope and dread. But how could I trust her? What if they were all a part of something dark, something beyond my understanding? I slammed the gear back into drive, foot heavy on the pedal. One look behind the larger figure was still there, lingering, its form growing clearer in the light. It was unlike anything I had seen before. It moved with a fluidity that felt predatory, talons glinting in the moonlight. I didn't want to think about what it could do if it reached me. In a sudden surge of desperation, I pressed the gas, hoping to break free. The tires spun briefly on loose gravel, then caught hold as I launched forward. The engine roared back to life, drowning out the echoing laughter that lingered in my ears. But the moment I shot toward the circle, the girl took another step forward, and an invisible wall slammed against the front of my car. My breath caught. The figures surged back, closing ranks, creating an impenetrable barrier. I could see their eyes now glinting with an unsettling hunger. This wasn't a gathering, it was a ritual. My pulse raced again, heightened by the sense of being prey in a dark game. I felt trapped, exposed, and then everything changed. The flickering flame split into three, each glowing brighter and dancing higher into the night sky. It felt like a signal, a call, no, a command. My thoughts raced. What were they asking of me? What could they possibly want? Let go. The voice echoed again, becoming a fierce command that turned my insides to ice. I felt a strange compulsion to obey, a magnetic pull toward the girl who seemed to shine brighter than the flames. Her expression was pleading but powerful, like she knew something I didn't. Before I could altogether grasp the enormity of what was happening, the figures began to chant in a language I couldn't understand. The vibration echoed in my bones, a dark rhythm that made my heart race. I frowned, searching for escape, then, without warning, the larger figure took a step forward, its jagged movements breaking through the shadows. I felt a surge of terror as its eyes met mine. It wasn't just looking, it was seeing me, as if it sought something deeper, something buried within. I was suffocating under the weight of their gaze, and when I found it, the shimmering flame in the center metamorphosed into a shape, pooling together into a face. When I saw it, I gasped. A truth tangled in shadows, just within reach, but what it promised terrified me to my core. I couldn't pull my eyes away from the face formed by the flames. It twisted and roared like a living nightmare, a blend of anguish and anger etched into its features. I blinked, trying to convince myself it wasn't real, but the heat from the flames licked at my skin, making my heart race faster. "Get out of here!" The girl shouted now, her voice cutting through the chanting. She gestured frantically, urging me to leave. I felt a pulse of urgency in her words, clear and brave, despite the chaos around us. But the ground shook again, and fear tightened its grasp around my throat. I didn't want to move, every instinct screamed at me to stay inside the car, to lock the doors, to protect myself from whatever this was. The chanting grew louder, echoing against the car like thunder. The larger figure stepped closer to the flames, and the fire flickered in response, almost as if it was alive. I squinted, forcing myself to focus. A tangle of words in a foreign tongue streamed from its lips, each syllable feeling like an arrow aimed straight at my soul. It was a language of command, full of power, and I felt it wrap around me like a net. I slammed my hands on the wheel and closed my eyes tight. "No," I murmured. "Just get out. You can do this." My heart thundered as I forced myself to breathe, aware of the girl's pleading gaze still locked on me. I felt her hope trying to reach me through the chaos. Suddenly, chills swept down my spine. Something shifted in front of my car, breaking the spell. The chanting stopped. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. My eyes cracked open, and I saw the figures had turned, their ghostly faces replaced by something cold and knowing. They knew I was there. They knew my fear, and then, to my utter disbelief, they parted, opening a path through the thrumming circle. The girl took a step towards me, her form glowing in sync with the now flickering flames. "You have to trust me," she implored, her voice steadier than I felt. But trust was a precious thing, precious and risky. Everything in me screamed to flee. But as I glanced into her eyes, I saw something raw, courage mixed with desperation. It pulled at me, overriding the panic swirling in my thoughts. With a jolt of adrenaline, I turned the key, the engine roaring to life once more. The path laid before me beckoned, but my fingers hesitated on the gear shift. I was standing on the edge of a choice, face the unknown or retreat into the safety of darkness. Then, out of nowhere, the ground jolted again, this time sending tremors of energy through my feet. A voice cut through, low and dangerous. "You can't escape your fate." It belonged to the larger figure, and I sensed a threat hidden within it. Fueled by fear, I slammed the gear back into drive. Just as I did, the figures surged forward, their eyes glowing in unified purpose. The girl's scream punctured the night, and as I peeled away, I caught one last glimpse of her, the glow fading into the dark, swallowed by the looming shadows that I had escaped, but at what cost? I felt it burning in my chest, a sense of urgency leading me into the abyss of the night. As I sped away, I knew I was tangled in something far greater than me, that the darkness was merely beginning. The next morning felt like a fog had settled over my mind. I avoided looking in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the faces of those figures staring back at me. But all I saw was empty roads stretching ahead. Breathing in the sharpness of the air, I focused on regaining my composure. I needed to shake off the terror of last night. After driving for what felt like hours, I finally decided to pull over at a small diner. The sign read the Pine Cone, and the cozy atmosphere offered a momentary refuge. Inside, the smell of coffee and pancakes filled the air, but it did little to calm my racing heart. I found a seat in the corner, hoping no one would notice the tremors still rattling my hands. As I sipped my black coffee, I overheard snippets of conversation from a nearby table. Two locals were chatting casually, but the words caught my attention. They spoke about the fires and disappearances around the woods. My stomach tightened. Were they talking about the same fire? Was the girl okay? "Strange things happen in those woods," one of them said, a grin creeping onto his face. "Folks say you shouldn't go out there after dark." He leaned in closer to his companion, lowering his voice. "Things don't like to be disturbed." I leaned in, trying to catch every word. The tension from last night gripped me, forcing my thoughts in circles. The diner felt suddenly claustrophobic as questions bubbled in my chest. Who was that girl? And what was that fire really about? "That's where they found her," the other local said, a serious look replacing the humor. "Just last week. No sign of struggle, just gone. Gone." The word hit me like a brick. My instincts flared. I thought about the girl's pleading eyes, her courage pulling me to her. Had I really escaped, or had I just stepped into something worse? After they finished their coffee, I decided I couldn't ignore my gut. I had to know more. I paid the bill, the weight of the diner still anchoring me down, but my resolve hardened. I wanted answers. I got back to the car and started down the road to the woods they had mentioned. The trees loomed larger than life as I drew closer, dark and foreboding, like sentinels watching over hidden secrets. Every shadow seemed to shift, and I wondered if I was truly ready for what lay ahead. As I crossed into the tree line, the atmosphere felt different. The air thickened, and an unsettling quiet settled in. A chill crawled over my skin, and I gripped the steering wheel tighter. That's when I saw it, a flicker of light through the trees. It was soft at first, like a candle's glow. But as I drove deeper, it grew brighter, pulsing as if calling to me. A misstep? Some intuition nudged me forward, and beneath that glow, an uneasy realization washed over me. Someone, or something, was waiting. Suddenly, the fear that had been simmering erupted within me. I slammed on the brakes, my heart racing. I needed to decide: step into the light or turn back into the darkness. But I could feel it in my bones. Whatever awaited me wouldn't let me leave easily. I shut my eyes for a moment, trying to steady my shaky hands. The glow beckoned me, but there was a heaviness in the air that was hard to shake off. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to look closer. The light shimmered through the trees, ethereal and enchanting, yet something in my gut told me it was a trap. I glanced around, searching for any sign of life. My instincts screamed that I wasn't alone. I could feel eyes on me, though I didn't see anyone. Just go back, I whispered to myself. Yet my foot seemed glued to the floor, my curiosity battling with caution. I had come too far to turn back empty-handed. I shifted the car into gear, edging it forward slowly. The crunch of gravel under my tires felt exaggerated in the silence. As I inched closer, the light transformed into a more distinct shape. A small clearing emerged from the underbrush. Then I noticed something that made my skin crawl. In the center of that clearing, flickering like a candle, stood an old lantern. It was hand-painted, with delicate designs etched into its surface. But what struck me most was the twisted, blackened wood surrounding it, as if fire had scarred the earth. My heart pounded in my chest. Was this where the girl had been? The stories I overheard echoed in my mind, blending with the lingering sense of dread. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on hollow ground. As I scanned the area, I noticed an object lying half buried in the dirt. I stepped out of my car, drawn to it. With hesitant fingers, I brushed away the leaf litter. A silver locket glinted in the dim light. My pulse quickened. Could this belong to the girl? Before I could gather my thoughts, a rustle in the bushes caught my attention. My heart leapt into my throat. I forced myself to stay still, listening intently. The rustling stopped, replaced by an oppressive silence. I could sense movement just out of sight, shadows shifting among the trees. I bolted back to my car, clutching the locket tightly in my palm. My instincts screamed at me to flee. I threw myself into the driver's seat, heart racing as I fumbled with the keys. But as I turned the ignition, the engine sputtered and stalled. Panic surged through me. Then, emerging from the shadows, was a figure. Staring, mostly hidden behind a tree but unmistakably there. My breath hitched as I recognized the silhouette. It was the girl from my vision. Fear curled in my stomach, but I couldn't look away. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. The forest felt like it was closing in around me. I glanced at the locket in my hand. What was happening? I had to know more, involved in something far deeper than I imagined. I couldn't turn my back now. Not when she was calling for me, but as I looked back up, she was gone. Just like that, swallowed by the shadows. I felt the air chill around me, and I knew I was losing my grip on reality. I had to find her. Whatever it took. With trembling hands, I started the car again. The engine roared to life, but a flicker of doubt remained. Something had changed, and the woods felt alive. I needed to uncover the truth hidden within those trees, but at what cost? And just as I pulled out of the clearing, the lantern went dark. I drove away from the clearing, barely registering the road in front of me as my mind raced. The image of the girl haunted me, her plea echoing in my ears. I blinked hard, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling that had settled into my bones. I couldn't wrap my head around what I had just seen. After a few minutes, I found myself parked along the roadside, heart still pounding. I pulled the locket from my pocket and examined it closely. My fingers traced the engraving, a small heart encircled by vines. It felt both beautiful and sinister, like a piece of someone's lost history. I opened it. Inside, a faded photograph of a girl, smiling brightly, stared back at me. What if this was her? I took a deep breath and leaned back in my seat. I was now far from the clearing, yet the sense of unease remained. I considered calling the police or at least asking someone in town about the girl, but I felt the weight of the locket in my palm pulling me back to the clearing. The way she had looked at me, almost pleading, I couldn't ignore that. Think. I said aloud. What do I do? My mind raced through possible explanations. Was she lost? In danger? Part of some myth or story that I had yet to uncover? Just then, my phone buzzed on the passenger seat, breaking my train of thought. I picked it up, glancing at the screen. It was a message from my friend, Mike. He wanted to know how the camping trip was going. Perfect, I muttered sarcastically. Just perfect. Still, I felt a wild impulse to share what had happened. I typed out a quick message before stopping, remembering the stories I had heard. The locals spoke quietly of strange occurrences but didn't elaborate. What if Mike dismissed me? I deleted my message and pocketed the phone again. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted something moving near the tree line. My breath hitched. I squinted into the shadows. A small figure emerged, a girl, not the one from my vision but strikingly familiar. She looked lost, her dress torn and dirty. It couldn't be a coincidence that I slipped out of my car, every instinct warning me to stay back. Hey! I called, my voice shaky. Are you okay? But as I stepped closer, she turned and vanished into the underbrush. Panic surged through me again. What was going on? Was this a hallucination, or was I truly losing my mind? I hesitated, battling the urge to follow her. I took a few cautious steps into the trees, adrenaline coursing through me. Every snap of a twig set my nerves on edge. I called out again, but silence swallowed my words. Then, I noticed something glistening on the ground, a hairpin, sturdy and ornate, just like the one I had seen in the photograph inside the locket. A chill ran down my spine. I picked it up, clutching it tightly, suddenly feeling like I had stumbled upon a breadcrumb in an unsettling breadcrumb trail. Maybe I was getting closer to the answers I needed. But just as I turned to retrace my steps back to the car, the air shifted. A sense of dread washed over me like an ice-cold wave, and I realized that I was no longer alone. That's when I heard the whisper again. Help me. The whisper echoed in the thickening silence, creeping into my bones, reminding me of the girl in white and the flickering flame. I cautiously turned around, but I didn't see anyone. Where are you? My heart pounded harder, anxiety squeezing my chest as shadows danced around me, shifting like a living entity. I could feel the forest closing in, its darkness reaching for me. Taking a deep breath, I clutched the hairpin and locket tightly, the heaviness of their histories weighing on me. This isn't real, I murmured, but doubt gnawed at me. Was I still caught in a web woven by fear, or had I truly crossed over to a world where the boundaries of reality were blurred? Help me. The voice sounded more desperate this time, echoing through the trees. I grit my teeth, leaning into the sound, each step forward feeling like a leap into an abyss. The world shifted around me, silhouettes emerging from the shadows, faces indistinguishable yet undeniably watching. I had to find the girl, the one I felt I had failed. Suddenly a figure lunged from behind a tree, and I stumbled backward. It was her. The girl in white stood before me, breathless with urgency, her eyes wide, pleading. You came back. We can end this. End what? I stammered. The foreboding presence of the woods lurked behind me, thickening in a way I could taste. They've taken too many. I can't break free unless you help me. Her voice quivered, the faint glow of another flame flickering behind her, illuminating the dreadful shadows of the trees. The environment hummed with energy, whispers clashing in chaotic rhythm. What do you want me to do? My voice came out sharper, the weight of uncertainty pushing down on me. Did I really want to step deeper into whatever nightmare awaited? Listen. There's a gate, she said, urgency coursing through her tone. it keeps them trapped. But you have to move quickly. Tonight is pivotal. Only the chosen can unlock it. Chosen? I echoed, disbelief mingling with a strange sense of duty. I'm bound to this place, but you have the chance to set us free. Free? How? Questions bubbled up, but I felt myself drawn into the intensity of her gaze, the flicker of hope igniting a flicker in my heart. Follow me. She turned, and with a fleeting glimpse of her tattered dress, dove deeper into the dark trees, urging me forward. I hesitated, battling swirling doubts, but the urgency in her voice, the possibility of answers pulled me along. As we navigated through the twisted underbrush, the whispers grew louder, almost guiding us. We're close, she said. I focused on her silhouette darting ahead, feeling that pull deeper than fear. Then, just as I caught up to her, she stopped before a gargantuan tree with sprawling roots that twisted like fingers grasping for the earth. In its trunk, a perfectly circular hollow glowed with a soft light. This is it. What do I do? I asked, my voice nearly drowned by the surrounding sounds. Recite the incantation. She reached into the folds of her dress, producing a small, ancient-looking scroll. The way she handled it felt reverent, like it was the key to her freedom. I took the scroll, my hands trembling as I unfolded it. The words were a jumble of symbols, shimmering slightly as I held it under the dim, flickering light. As I began to decipher the ancient language, I spoke with an almost automatic cadence, every syllable awakening into the air around me. The forest shivered in response, shadows swirling as if the trees were listening. For a moment, I thought I might actually be doing something real, something transformative. Then it stopped. Silence fell abruptly, heavier than before. The laughter that had haunted me faded into a quiet, almost mournful whisper. I glanced around, breath hitching, and saw the figures emerging from the darkness, their faces clearer now, those of lost souls trapped in time. Release us! They cried, their voices harmonizing, a chorus of the damned echoing through the night. The girl stood beside me, her eyes wide, a mixture of fear and hope layered in a fragile mask. The ground trembled, and I felt it. Something was shifting in the air, a current pulling at the very fabric of this place. Keep going. She urged, with every word. The space around us pulsed, and the figures began to swirl in a dance as if drawn into the light emanating from the tree. I rushed to finish, each sound more desperate than the last, the urgency clawing at my chest. Then a flash of blinding light exploded from the tree, illuminating everything, consuming shadows and figures in its brilliance. I shielded my eyes, feeling the rush of air and energy press against me. When I opened them again, everything felt different. The energy hung no longer oppressive, but weightless. The girl stood before me, her face radiant, almost free. She smiled, and in that moment, something shifted in her eyes. She had found solace, a peace I could only dream of, but then I looked further into the forest. Figures were still there, watching, waiting. My heart sank. Their whispers resumed, but now they felt softer, longing, as if they were trying to speak to me still tethered within chaos. What happens now? I asked, looking back at her. We wait. Some will be free, but others they remain lost, she whispered, her gaze shifting to the shadows behind me. I looked down at the scroll, realizing that although I had set a few free, I hadn't uncovered the entirety of the truth. A gnawing sensation settled on my heart. Will I ever understand? I said, half a plea, half a fear. She stepped back into the shadows, her form gliding like smoke. That's the price of knowledge. And with that, she faded away, only echoes of her laughter lingering in the air. The shadows slumped once more, cloaked in an air of ancient hunger that I didn't know what lay ahead. I knew this chapter wasn't over, even as I turned away, my heart heavy with questions. The forest sighed, as if accepting my presence, holding its secrets close. I walked back toward my car, glancing up at the trees. Even now, they loomed, watching, waiting for the next step of this tangled story, my story, a web I had never anticipated but was now undeniably part of. As I walked away, I still felt the whispers blending with my thoughts, each note echoing a promise that unity or further loss awaited. Whatever lay in the dark corners of that forest, I would come back. I had to.